This is my boosted C6 Corvette, and after running this setup for a couple years now, I've learned what you do need to maintain, what you don't, and kind of how to keep it pretty reliable without spending way too much money. So let's get into it. We're going to be going over oil change frequency, Procharger oil change frequency, spark plugs, keeping your coolant temp in regulation, and blower belts. Those are the 5 things that I kind of always go over, and then there'll be some miscellaneous things that I'm sure I'll think of as I'm making this video, and we'll add them in. The first thing that I did on my maintenance routine whenever I put this supercharger on was I increased the frequency of my oil changes. So it's very common on these cars to do a 5,000 mile oil change on synthetic oil. You could probably even go further if you wanted to, but I now change it at every 3,000 mile due to the fact that I am putting more load and more strain on this motor before, and due to the fact that I run ethanol in this car. So ethanol is it draws water. Obviously I cannot think of the term right now, I'm full-blown blanking out. But if you're not getting your oil to a constant high temperature, you will get tons of moisture in your engine. So that is why I change my oil more frequency in this setup. Now, like I just said, I change my oil every 3,000 mile. The thing that I do every other oil change, or every 6,000 mile, is I change the oil in the blower. So the fill cap is here, the drain cap is on a hose that runs all the way down. It's pretty easy to do if you've never done it before. I was able to figure it out moderately quickly, not really any problems at all. So every other engine oil change, I change the blower oil to keep that gearbox living longer. And about every month or two, I take this air filter off and take my time to blow it out, and then I retighten these clamps back up so I don't have to worry about having excess boost leaks. Now, if you've been around these cars at all with these blower setups, a thing that I hear all the time is overheating, coolant temp, oil temp being just sky high through the roof. So the one thing that I've done to really combat that is I keep all this clean constantly. Like anytime that I think I'm going to take it to the drag strip, this is all clean. So what I mean by that is in between this radiator and AC condenser, you'll see there's a gap there. And I will take this off and I will just run my air hose up and down that and blow all that out real gently, because these cars are notorious for getting stuff packed up under them. Wow, I really scraped something there. Anyway, they're notorious for getting leaves, grass, everything packed up in them, and it makes it very restrictive for airflow. I've never had any problems with this thing overheating as long as I keep this area in here all cleaned out. I obviously check my coolant levels, but they're never really dropping. This car doesn't have any leaks, but I do check my coolant, brake fluid, all stuff like that anytime before I hit the track. That's something you guys should always do regardless, is check all fluid levels if you're going to get out and beat on the car. Now, this is more of a personal opinion. I don't know if other guys are doing this, but I change my spark plugs every year. So every 5,000-6,000 miles, but I change my plugs every year. And every time I take this to the drag strip, I try to pull them and check them and make sure nothing's wrong with them. I've never found anything wrong with them. I've never found one fouled. I've never had any misfire problems on this car. But it's way better safe than sorry, because a set of plugs from Napa is like 70 bucks. So it's kind of a cheap insurance to make sure that my engine is running top notch. One thing that I always check, whether I'm going to the drag strip or especially if I'm just going on a road trip, is this blower belt. I always make sure that it's not walking off, that it doesn't have some sort of fray on each side, that everything is aligned. Because if this belt were to come off and I was somewhere far away from home, this would probably be an absolute nightmare to try to put in on the side of the road, and I don't want to even attempt that if I don't have to. One more thing that you can do as a cheap form of basically insurance is I always put fuel stabilizer in this car if it's setting for extended periods of time, and I do it regardless, probably every 5 to 6 tanks of ethanol that I run through this car in general. Even though ethanol is insanely good for making power, you guys know it is highly corrosive. It'll put a lot of moisture in your engine. So I run this stuff from Walmart, pretty solid, pretty cheap. I wait till I get to about a quarter tank of fuel. I never go less than that on this car just due to having dual pumps. I dump the whole thing in. I let it circulate 20, 30, 45 minutes, and then I fill my tank up. Reliability wise, this car has been absolutely great. Knock on wood so far, with 8,500 miles on this blower setup, it has not left me stranded. Nothing related to the blower has broke. I mean, I've not really had any problems with it. I'm super thankful for that. And I do think a lot of it is being meticulous on maintenance, keeping track of what's going on. If your car's acting weird, you do need to be data logging it, things of that nature. So obviously nothing I said is too crazy. I don't think anything is too extravagant. Nothing is overdone. And I cannot tell you for certain this will work. But if you do kind of what I'm doing and you just maintain your car and keep track of it, and if it breaks, don't put it off, I think that your car will stay pretty solid in this setup as mine has. And you can prove that these platforms are reliable as long as you're willing to put a little bit of maintenance into them. All right, that's enough from this TED Talk, just trying to address some of the misconceptions, some of the actual reliability issues with these cars, the maintenance, things like that. But I hope you did find it informational. If you did, please subscribe. If you have anything you want to say, comment it down below, any questions. But that's all I got for now, so peace out. See you in the next one.